Hello. I recently watched the movie Into the Wild, and I wanted to share my thoughts and give a quick review. Now, there may be some minor spoilers, so if you'd rather avoid that, then feel free to watch the movie and come back later. But what we have in Into the Wild is actually a story that is based on a book which is based on a true story. And it's the story of Christopher McCandless. And I actually read this book for school way back when, and it's actually taken me several years to finally just watch the movie. I don't know what the delay was, but I finally did, and overall it's a good, riveting, if not traumatic story. And the story of Christopher McCandless is essentially he was an Oxford graduate. He came from a rather well-off family. He had his whole life essentially ahead of him and planned out, had a college savings, and was preparing to go to Harvard or some other very prestigious school. And what happens is that he decides that he doesn't really want that kind of life. And he donates his entire savings to charity and then takes what little money he has saved left and essentially road trips across the United States and eventually ends up in Alaska. And obviously, it is a movie. They do take some liberties with the story, but for the most part, the major impactful moments are true and taken from the life of Christopher McCandless. Now, the book was actually written by one of the people that met him along his journey, and that person then went back and kind of dug deeper into who this Christopher McCandless character was. And this movie essentially tells bits and pieces of that story. And as I said, it is pretty traumatic. This is not a lighthearted movie. It is very much a drama and has some heavy-hitting topics. And it's emotionally weighty because essentially the plot is that you have this kid who seemed to come from a perfect family, at least from the outside in, and he doesn't want that kind of life because the fact is that he has experienced a lot of trauma and just a lot of anger and a lot of really not so great things in his family life. And that's essentially what causes him to want no part in it whatsoever and go and find kind of himself in nature and among others. And it is an emotionally heavy movie. It is rated R. If that's something that you have issue with, I would recommend checking out the IMDb Parents Guide and other resources. They'll actually break down the specifics of what actually happens in the movie. There's some nudity, but it's not in a sexual context, and there is some swearing, but again, it's all used in a very much realistic sense. This movie is set in the 90s, and it's accurate to that point. As I said, they definitely do take some liberties with the story for the sake of the movie, but it doesn't really hinder the story or the character at all. And overall, I think it is certainly worth a watch. It's very much kind of in that perks of being a wallflower realm of movies, which are very emotionally heavy but still worth a watch. Now, I will give a warning. It's a minor spoiler. There is a pretty traumatic death scene of one character in the movie, and honestly, that was probably one of the harder moments to watch. It's not gory or anything like that. It's just a pretty traumatic death scene. But it really just tells the story of a person who was just lost and trying to find themselves because the family that they came from and the world that had been built up around them hadn't allowed them to express themselves or be the person that they wanted to be. And I like the movie. Again, it's emotionally heavy hitting and not for the faint of heart, but it's a good movie nonetheless. And if you are interested in the story, I would certainly recommend the book as well. And those are my thoughts on Into the Wild. Thanks for joining me. Hi, it's Aaron. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any thoughts or feedback, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I do read all of them. And if you'd like to see more content like this, well, you already know how YouTube works, so I don't need to tell you what to do. I'll also put a link to my Twitter in the description if you'd like to follow me on social media. I'll also put a link to my second channel where I go more in depth about specific hobbies. Once again, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.